Everybody, yeah. Where's the body? Yeah. Everybody, where's the body? Right. Christ is back. All right.
In a once-in-a-lifetime collection, Passion Community Church presents Jesus' Greatest Hits. Classics like Don't miss out on this incredible, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to experience Jesus' greatest hits like never before.
I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me.
But wait, there's more. 6 inspiring full-length messages from 5 iconic pastors. The meaningful musings of Brian Hughes. The thoughtful tutelage of Angie Frame. The clever coaching of Vernon Gordon. The essential instruction of Elijah Shirelli. And the gracious guidance of Brian Pope. All together for the first time in history.
Tell me, how am I supposed to live without you?
36 spiritual songs sure to inspire your every waking moment. Like the awesome anthem sung by Peter as Jesus invited him to join him on the surface of the lake.
I'm walking on water, yeah, and don't it feel good?
And how about Mary, the mother of Jesus, and this classic?
Sweet child of mine. Sweet love of mine.
And who can forget when the women found the stone rolled away at the tomb?
Say the line.
But wait, there's more. Jesus asked Peter 3 times if he loved him, and Peter replied with this classic melody.
And I will always love you.
That Peter, so committed.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you. Never
And who
gonna
can
make
forget
you
that
cry.
beautiful moment with the woman at the well, who turned to Jesus in amazement and said,
I can feel your grace when I'm with you, and I love it.
and remember the rich young ruler? Jesus told him he should sell everything he had to follow him. But he went away sad, singing,
You can go your own way, go your own way.
That's right, Jesus' Greatest Hits is not sold in stores, but you can join us online and in person. Details at pccwired.net. Not responsible for user error, nausea, discomfort, fuel charges, or slow internet service providers causing annoying buffering during the live streams.
Well, I'm not sure what to say about the Greatest Hits album, but I think at least the series will be worth it. I want you to think for a minute about your life to this point. Young and not so young, we all have some important moments in our personal histories. We all do. Those of us who are older have more maybe, but younger people have them too. So think about the formative moments that have imprinted you for the better, the events that propelled your life forward in a positive way. Those are your greatest hits. For me, I remember the moment that I saw her for the very first time. We were walking down the hallway of the girls' dorm at the University of Richmond, and my friend Will introduced me to Susan Payne. I turned the corner, peeked in her room, and was speechless. I'd never seen anything like her. It was a greatest hit moment for me. There was the day we got married, which I knew was a milestone. We all know our wedding day's a milestone, but I had no idea at the time how pivotal that moment would be for me. And the birth of each of our 3 kids. I remember being on the phone with my daughter, Mary Ashley. On July the 12th, 2019, I was almost 10,000 miles away in a remote village in Tanzania. I hadn't had cell service, but divinely in this one spot, on this one day, I could connect. Mary Ashley was in the hospital, and just a few minutes earlier, she had brought into the world our very first grandchild. Hearing her voice was one of the defining moments of my life. My tears soaked the African soil on which I stood, and from that moment on, the mission trip was over for me. If I could have chartered a plane right then and there, I would have come home. I had to wait 3 days, though, the longest 72 hours of my life, but I walked into the room, and I held her, and I said a prayer over her. And Susan snapped this picture, and then I remembered when I saw the picture that I had almost the exact same moment 30 years earlier when our daughter was born. Add to my list the day that my son Daniel married our daughter-in-law, Samara. The week that I got to spend with Joshua, our youngest, as he moved into adulthood. The day that we launched PCC. The day that I graduated from college. And the pinnacle of it all, the day that I gave my life to Jesus Christ. Haven't you had some moments like these? I mean, maybe you don't have grandkids and maybe you're not married, but regardless of the path and story of your life, we all have some epic, life-altering, positive moments. Maybe for you, it's the day you moved out on your own, or when you accepted the job, or when you bought your first home, or when you paid off that last dollar of debt. The day you were scouted for the team, or the time that you went on that epic trip with your parent. Maybe it's your baptism or a mission trip you went on or an encounter you had with God. Most of us don't give this much thought, but we really should. I mean, these are the defining pivot points that have brought us to where we are today. Our most profound moments, our most significant experiences, they are our greatest hits. And it's a fun exercise to think about them. But more than that, we can often see the hand of God at work most clearly when we identify these moments. Now, I want you to imagine if I told you could only have 6 of all of those major life-altering junctures where your life turned and brought you to where you are right now. If you could only choose half a dozen to discuss, to talk about with anybody else. Well, that was our task. In doing a Jesus Greatest Hits series, I felt like God saying, Brian, I want you to whet their appetite. I want you to choose 6, the 6 that you feel are most important and no more. Unlike the iconic Greatest Hits albums where the end result is not true to the title and only a handful of the 80 tunes on the 4-volume work are worth anything, everything Jesus said and did and taught is worthy. So what we're going to do for the next 6 weeks is we're going to highlight. I'm trying to dangle a carrot, perhaps a little bait and switch even, because the real Greatest Hits collection is right here, and you have to read it for yourself. Still, we're going to try. Every PCC teaching pastor, plus my good friend Vernon Gordon, was given the terrifying task of choosing just one teaching of Jesus and labeling it as most important. I'm going to do 2 of them. I'm going to do the first week today and the last week. And today, when I got to decide, when I had to choose, I did what any highly spiritual, deeply connected to God leader would do with such an assignment. I cheated. Jesus said, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. Why did I say I cheated? Because of the final phrase when Jesus said, for this sums up the law and the prophets. This is basically Jesus referring to the Bible that existed in his day, the law and the prophets, what we know as the Old Testament. It's the first 37 books of your Bible, 622,000 words in 929 chapters. And Jesus is saying that these 13 words are all you need. or at least they summarize what you need in order to live a God-honoring life. Talk about a greatest hits list. Jesus names one. And I'm not exactly sure that Jesus is trying to encourage us to toss out Abraham and Moses and King David, but Jesus essentially says the legacy of these great and godly leaders is found right here. 13 words. In everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. But you've heard this before, right? A million times, in fact. Is there anyone anywhere who's never heard of this phrase? It's so iconic as to have become cliche. It's so plastered on so many things in so many places, we may not even remember that Jesus is the one who said it. Worse, this phrase has permeated our culture until, and this is really not good, until we don't even think about it anymore. The truth of it, that is. Oh, we nod our heads. We would all raise our hands. We'd all applaud to affirm that we believe it. But let me ask you, when was the last time that you were in any situation, and thought, let me pause here for a minute. Let me see, and let me think about Jesus's words. I know how I want to respond in this situation right now, but how would I want to be treated if I were in the other position, if I were on the opposite side? And if you happen to have done that, if you made it that far, how many of us have recently actually denied our initial intended response and altered our behavior because of the infiltration of these 13 words into our hearts? I read, maybe not all of them, but a sizable chunk of Jesus' teaching as I prepared and prayed and asked God what scripture I would share today as the greatest hit. And initially, when I saw this text, I thought I'd skip it. I thought to myself, people are going to roll their eyes. They're going to say, wow, Brian, that's the best you can come up with? The golden rule? This will be the shortest sermon ever. Friends, here's the lesson for today. Let's treat others the way we want to be treated. Any questions? Great. Let's pray and go home and get ready for the Super Bowl. I even did some research. I wanted to look in my archives. I've been doing this for a long time. I wanted to see how did I teach this the last time I taught on this text? You know what I found? I've never taught on this text. 20 years of spiritual leadership and teaching the Bible, not a single sermon on Matthew 7:12. Shame on me. But it does make my point. We think we know this. We think we do this. So we think we don't need to talk about it. But God did something inside of me. He wouldn't let me move past it. He spoke clearly to me. And then God did what he often does with me. He took me to school. These 13 words, they include a depth that is concealed by the brevity of the sentence. It's really deceptive. And I think that's why we skip it. So I'd like to show you what I found, what I learned. And then I want to whet your appetite on how you and I can begin to live according to one of Jesus's greatest hits. Did you know that in most other major religions, there is a version of this teaching? This teaching that's often called the Golden Rule, though Jesus never called it the Golden Rule. That's never mentioned in the Bible, not titled that way. But let me show you, some spiritual leaders before and after Jesus said something similar. Here's some examples. A Jewish rabbi, Hillel, he said, what is hateful to yourself, do not do to someone else. The book of Tobit, which is in the Apocrypha, if you don't know what that is, you can look it up later. It says, what you yourself hate, to no man do. Confucius said, what you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. Ancient Greek king, I can't say his last name, we're going to call it Nick, King Nick, he said, do not do to others the things which make you angry when you experience them at the hands of other people. Brevity was not his gift. Epictetus, which I also have a hard time saying, said, what you avoid suffering yourself, do not afflict on others. And an ancient Stoic principle says, what you do not want to be done to you, do not do to anyone else. Well, I could keep going. There are lots of these quotes, but I think you've got enough to see the pattern. Do you notice the common theme among all of these quotes? Every one of them is negative. Every one of them says, don't do the thing that you don't want done to you. They're all the negative version of what Jesus said. They're sometimes called the silver rule as opposed to the golden rule. Jesus was the very first one to turn this concept, this thinking upside down and actually make it positive. And it's significant. Instead of saying, don't do to others what you don't want done to you, Jesus said, do to others what you would want done to you. And at first glance, you might say that this is splitting hairs. Come on, Brian, this is semantics. It's the same thing, but it's not. I want you to look harder. The negative form is the baseline just for society to exist. If people don't live by the negative version, we would all be hiding right now. Sir Thomas Browne, the 17th century author, he one time said, we are beholden to every man we meet that he does not kill us. That's the negative version. The negative form is the basic need of civilization. It doesn't go any farther than simply to exist. When this rule is put in the negative form, when we're told that we must refrain from doing to others which we don't wish them to do to us, it is just the minimum of existence. It's not a spiritual rule, it's a legal rule. It's required for us to do things like drive a car, live in a neighborhood, go to school, and go to work. William Barclay, my favorite commentator, he said this: if we could not assume that the conduct and the behavior of other people to us would conform to accepted standards of civilized life, then life would be intolerable. The negative form of the golden rule is not in any sense an extra. It is something without which life could not go on. Worse, the negative form is passive. It simply requires you to refrain from. It never has you do anything. It can be satisfied simply with inaction. If you consistently do nothing, you live by the silver rule. Not bringing harm to someone is just restraint. And it's good and it's necessary, I guess. But Jesus did not say, not hurting people sums up the Bible. Instead, Jesus' teaching is revolutionary because it's active, it's thoughtful, it moves, it restrains your carnal will, your fight or flight instinct, your gut reaction, your initial emotional response, and replaces it with something better. Jesus' rule puts the other person, the opposing party, even the one who's trying to win against you, in a higher position of importance than you. This should not be a bumper sticker. It should be the banner of our lives. It ought to be engraved on our hearts. It should be lived out everywhere. Everywhere. In everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. In everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. Everything is an absolute word. Jesus doesn't use it by accident. Everything means things like always and never. It's all encompassing. Everything makes no exception. There are no loopholes to it. Clever arguments won't grant you a pass. Everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, includes everything and everyone. All human beings, every one of them. Not just those in my circle, my BFFs, my tribe, not just those who share the way I see the world, my political view, or even my faith. Everyone means everyone, infidels included. The Muslim prophet Muhammad and the Quran have a positive version of Jesus' teaching, but it only applies to those who are Muslim. Others adapt Jesus' instruction, but they offer an out with it. They offer a justification in certain circumstances for not treating other people the way you'd want to be treated, but not Jesus. In everything means everything. Every situation, every encounter, every person, every interaction, every circumstance. No exceptions. The reason Jesus leaves no room for an out is a principle that we like to apply fully to our own lives and lesser to other people. It's a theological lesson that underscores the music that humanity collectively makes together. Let me show it to you. It's called Imago Dei, and it means the image of God. And it's a concept that applies uniquely and specifically only to human beings, originating in the pre-creation divine conception of our very first grandparents. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us." As I like to say, every human being has equal and infinite value to God. I am not more important than anyone else. My desires don't usurp your need. And the world doesn't really revolve around me, but around the one whose image I bear, and you bear, and you bear, and we all bear. This principle of Imago Dei underwrites Jesus' golden rule, and it ought to reorient the way that we treat who? Everyone. When? All the time. Or as Jesus put it, in everything. You know, I was curious when I sat with this text for a while. Something about it struck me, bothered me. Jesus says here that all the law and prophets are summed up by this concept of treating other people the way you'd want to be treated. And I thought to myself, I've heard this somewhere before. Wasn't there another time when Jesus said something and then he said, this encompasses the entirety of the law and the prophets? Yes, there is. I'm sure of it. Here it is. Teacher, Jesus was asked, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So we ought to ask, which is it, Jesus? I mean, when I treat others the way I want to be treated, does that encompass the law and the prophets? Or when I love God and love my neighbor as myself, does that encompass all of the law and the prophets? The answer, of course, is yes. If you are made in the image of God, the Imago Dei is reflected in you. And if I love God and if I love you like I love myself, then I will treat you the way I want to be treated, even when it costs me. It all works together. It's saying the same thing. And now we can begin to put it into practice. We know the why, the foundation of Jesus' rationale, the marrying not of separate concepts, but of a consistent teaching. Now we can begin to envision what it might look like. Are you ready? I like to drive fast. I don't like it when people in front of me drive slow. I tend to get frustrated. I'm in a hurry for reasons I can't always explain. So I get a little close. I flash my lights maybe. I wave my hands. Move over or move faster. That's what I think. The common denominator in all of these words, all of my reaction, the common denominator is me. But Jesus said, treat that person the way that you want to be treated. So I've started recently to discipline myself to stop and ask, who might be driving the car in front of me, the one that's slowing me down? What if they're elderly? What if they can't see well, like my mom driving at night who has to drive more slowly in order to drive safely? How would I want someone to treat my mom in this moment? If I was older, if I needed to drive more slowly in order to be safe, how would I want someone driving behind me to treat me? Now, how about this one? My wife, Susan, she's got this mental block. Seriously, at least 3 times a week, sometimes more than 3 times a week, she forgets to bring her gym bag in the house when she gets home at the end of the day. Oh, she'll eventually remember when it's like 10:30 at night, -5 degrees outside, my last eyelid is giving way to the bliss of a dreamy sleep. Oh, she'll say out loud so the neighbors can hear, oh, I forgot my bag. And in my mind, I'm thinking all kinds of things like, is it that hard to remember? You forget this every day. Can't you set an alarm at like 7:30, a reasonable hour, so that you can be reminded? Maybe we could tie a string behind the front door so when you come in, you could trip and fall and think, oh, why did I tie that string there? I need to go get my gym bag out of my car, but I don't say any of those things. This is what I think to myself in that moment. I think, I love that Susan takes good care of me, and she really does. I want to be taken care of. I like being taken care of. So I'm going to treat her the way that I want to be treated. No problem, I say. Springing back to life. I got this. Subarctic temperatures with my boots untied and half naked. I run out there to her car because that's how I want to be treated. Or how about this? Last week, a coworker and a friend let me know that they were upset with me about something I did. Can I come talk with you, she said. It wasn't really a request. So I did what I often initially do. I kind of guessed what it was about, and I started to formulate my argument, solidify my position, justify my action. Before she ever sat across from me, I had a well-articulated legal brief all organized in my mind. And then I remembered to ask, how would I want to be treated if I was in her shoes? Oh yeah. I would hope for an open heart. I would want to be heard, honestly heard. I would hope that the person I'm talking to would have some measure of humility, that they would be vulnerable, that they'd be willing to try and understand where I'm coming from. So she came in, and I took a deep breath, and I mentally set aside all of my savvy arguments, and I listened. And I asked some questions, and I honestly tried to understand her point of view and to see the world and the problem the way that she saw it. And that conversation ended where so many of these conversations do when we apply this golden rule to a potential conflict. I realized I was wrong, and she was right. How about that? How about that? I mean, how about Jesus' command to treat other people the way you want to be treated when you realize that you're wrong? There are times in my life when I struggle to listen. It's still not second nature. I have to tell myself to do it. There are times when I have to fight to hold my tongue because I'm pretty good with my words and I can use them as a weapon. But this is one of those areas that actually comes easy for me, apology. I know that's not true for all of us. Maybe you struggle with this, so let me help you. Looking someone in the eye who's been hurt by something you did or didn't do or something you said, looking at them in the eye and letting them see that you are honestly sorry for the action that hurt them while you say out loud the words that express your regret. That's not only healing, it's how you would want to be treated. Saying I'm sorry, not as a quick fix or as a way of ending the debate and moving on, but as an honest heart cry of your remorse is one of the most healing actions you can ever take. And I'm sorry to tell you that I say I'm sorry regularly. If you don't, you probably should. Because in the course of a week, there are usually at least a couple of times when I don't get something right. How do I want to be treated when you realize that you did something wrong that affected me? How do I want to be treated in that moment? I want you to own it. It's okay, just acknowledge it. Just honestly apologize for it. Not all of these are earth-shattering, emotionally scarring betrayals. Hopefully those are rare. But the other kind of disrespect, it's not that rare. I got into my car at 5:30 in the morning, just after the day after it snowed a lot where I live this week. And this is my custom, so I'm out there in my gym shorts and in a sweatshirt. And I set my coffee on the console between the seats to grab my seatbelt. And that's when I noticed that the windshield hadn't thawed yet, even though the car had been warming up for a while. There's a lot of snow on it. So I grabbed the scraper and I went to work. And once I had a few lines that I could peek between with my legs turning blue, I jumped back into the car, and I was slightly behind schedule, but I thought I could catch up, and that's when it happened. I hit the completely full, unsipped cup of coffee with my elbow, and it rocked towards the passenger seat and then rocked back and emptied its piping hot contents all over my seat, soaking my clothes. I grabbed the hat off my head. I wiped up as best as I could. I had to go back into the house to change, and the whole thing set me behind about 10 minutes. I was able to make up some of it, but I was late for the first 2 meetings of my day. And so I walked into the meeting and I told the story because it was kind of fun and funny. And then I added this. I said, I know your time is valuable, and I'm really sorry that I was late to meet with you. It's disrespectful, and I apologize. And I meant every word of it. How many times do we have to wait for the doctor or the DMV or for some other appointment that we have scheduled in advance and agreed to together that we were going to meet at this time? They're late, only to have them be significantly late at times and never express regret for wasting our time. I want to be treated with respect. And when somebody's late, for example, I appreciate their acknowledgement that they didn't do what they said they would do. It's not the end of the world. Just acknowledge it. I want people to treat me that way. I want to treat others that way. Maybe being late's not your habit, but you have some things that you do from time to time that warrant an apology. It's how you would want to be treated. So why not practice saying, I'm really sorry, and meaning it? And when that happens, for the record, some of us have a not so hard time saying I'm sorry, but we have a hard time with the other side of it. When I offend someone and I say to them, I am really sorry, and I mean every word of it, you know how I want them to treat me? I want them to forgive me. Likewise, if that's how I want to be treated, I also have to extend forgiveness. Some of us struggle with that. How do you want to be treated? There's talk today about the government starting to look at pastors like essential workers and allowing us to get priority to get the vaccine. And I really don't want to debate with you about the vaccine. Please don't send me an email about your position on the vaccine. We're all making our own decisions, but for me, I'm going to get that thing as soon as I can. And I'm going to rigorously apply Jesus' teaching to the moment when I get the vaccine, which means if they call me tomorrow and invite me to get the shot, I'm going to decline. I will decline because if I was over 70 right now, I would want someone younger and healthier than me to let me have their shot. If I was sick right now, I would want someone who's not sick to let me have their shot. If I was at risk, I would want someone who is not at risk to let me have their shot. So I'm applying Jesus' rule in everything. All of us are surrounded by people who are longing for you and me as followers of Jesus to practice what Jesus said was his most important teaching, to treat other people the way we want to be treated. Not sometimes or just with some people or with some exceptions, but in everything, everything, everything. To love them like we love ourselves in every circumstance. This might sound like a mountain that you can't climb. I mean, it's a tall order. Maybe you should begin like this. Maybe you should think about a specific person, an inspired action, an intentional love. Because we live in the most self-centered time I have ever experienced in my entire life. The strife and the pain around us is mind-blowing. Everybody's talking, nobody's listening. Everyone is clamoring for more for themselves and neglecting the need of people right in their own purview. Everybody's thinking of their side winning and thumbing their noses at those who lose. But now that your eyes are opened, follower of Jesus, you have to change the way you behave. Namely, you have to love others, love God, and in the process, treat everyone else in every other situation the way you want to be treated. And if we all did that, we'd move the needle. We'd change the world. We'd make people's lives better. And everyone who doesn't follow Jesus would finally want to.
see the state of the world and it grieves me. I hear the cries of the broken from the rich and the poor. Hear the fear of disease all around me. I feel responsible now that I've seen, because we all were born live for more than this, so much more than this. So I'm gonna love like you love, and love like you love. Gonna love others the way that you love me. I'm gonna love like you love, and love like you love. Gonna love others the way that you love me, the way that you love me. I felt the children unseen and they moved me. I wonder what I can do to improve 1,000 lives. I feel the absence of love and it scares me. I feel responsible now that I've seen, because we all were born so much more than this, so much more than this. So I'm gonna love like you love, and love like you love. Gonna love others the way that you love me. Now I'm gonna love like you love, and love like you love. Gonna love others the way that you love me, the way that you love. I was the lost soul that you rescued. I was the orphan you adopted and brought into your heart. I was acquainted with the hopelessness that was living in the streets. That was me. So I'm gonna love like you love, and love like you love. Gonna love others the way that you love me. I'm gonna forgive like you forgave, and rescue like you have saved, and others, and others, 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 oh, others, way that you love me. You love me. I love others. Oh, because you first loved me. Because you first loved me.
Our eyes are open, followers of Jesus. Let us love God and love others and treat everyone in every situation the way that we want to be treated. Brian gave us a memorable way to do that. Specific person, inspired action, intentional love. Let me say it again. Specific person, inspired action, intentional love. Look for the specific people God puts in front of you. Be inspired and moved to see them as Jesus would, to treat them as Jesus would. Intentionally love them the way that God made us to love others. If a reminder will help, we've made a wallpaper for you that you can download at your computer or you're on your phone. You can check that out on our website or on social media to find it. And we'll see you right back here next week.